fellas come here often?
I'm sorry, you talk to me?
Oh, no, I just asked if you fellas come here often.
Oh.
But they'd like to come more often, it means more billable hours.
I forgive you for threatening me with a cage.
Oh, was that right?
Yeah, for exhaling vapor out there. Apparently that's smoking. We're in a
Really?
government building.
Mr. Seals, do you know the difference between vapor and smoke?
Yeah, see, like.
All rise.
Good afternoon again. Please be seated. Mr. Cleveland, if you would resume to stand. Please have a seat. Chair Bauer.
Yes, sir. So, Mr. Cleveland, since January, over the last several months, how many times have you and your colleagues, these defendants, been out on the street following the PEOs? How many times? Let's do it on a weekly basis.
I object to the question. It was compound. First you said you, and then you said and your colleagues. It has to be separated.
I think it's fair. If you would just
I'll
rephrase
break
it.
it down.
Mr. Cleveland, how many times have you been out following the three PEOs on a weekly basis since January?
So in January and February, I was in between work. And so as Jane had mentioned, I would typically go out Monday through Friday, you know, just kind of whenever. I guess initially I kind of had this, I'd go to the library and I'd go read at some points, but, you know, I would say it was very consistent those first 2 months.
So 5 days out of Monday through Friday?
That's probably accurate.
And how about Saturday?
Saturday, initially, I don't think I was going out that much on Saturdays. I definitely did go out January and February.
So January and February, about 5 times a week. And this was, I think you've already said, whenever the PEOs were out there, you would go out there with and follow them, right?
Well, I mean, I'd go out there and try to put change in the meters to prevent tickets, yes.
And during that time frame, you had other defendants with you, didn't you?
I mean, occasionally, sometimes, I guess initially I would, like in early January, I'd pretty much do it myself, but like as,
Well, tell us who else you had out there with you in January and February of the defendants.
I would say probably Garrett was out there in January,
Garrett, Ian,
Garrett,
who else?
I don't recall when Graham began Robin Hooding, but I don't believe it was in January.
It was late January.
Okay.
Okay, Attorney Meyer, that's the last, that there've been a couple, Mr. Colson, if there's another outbreak.
It won't happen again, Your Honor.
And so then moving into the springtime, how often were you out there in the spring?
Typically, you know, I'd work Monday through Friday.
When did you get a job?
Probably March, early March.
So how often were you out there on a weekly basis?
Usually I was just out on Saturdays. Sometimes I would, you know, come home from work and, you know, maybe do an hour or so.
And so then most of your days were on Saturdays, right?
Correct.
So most of your interactions were dealing with Jane, haven't they been?
And then occasionally, you know, I guess since then, you know, March through September, you know, there have been some weekdays that I've gone out.
You've been out there with the other defendants too, haven't you?
Yes.
And that includes Garrett Ian, correct? Sorry.
Yes.
Graham Colson
Yes.
and Ian Freeman
Yes.
and Kate.
Yes.
And how about Peter? You said no?
Peter, he was not very interested in going out and trying to fill parking meters, so not really, no.
Now, you've been involved in what, two fisticuffs, haven't you, where you've been involved in them? One is photographed and the other one's down by this parking lot?
I'm not sure, I'm only aware of one,
Which one is that?
the one that Jane refers to in her affidavit.
And that's the one that's depicted in the photograph?
Correct.
Okay. And so you weren't there? Who was at that other one? Was that Garrett Ian and Graham Colson, right?
Yes.
And you've acknowledged in your answer that the PEOs asked you to stay 15 feet back from them, haven't you?
Yes, but I feel like it was not their request per se. It was obviously a staged event. The only time they've ever made a request like that has been with Peter Thomas standing there.
And when did Peter Thomas?
I don't recall the exact date, it was late March.
Okay. Your answer on page 6 of your answer says the PEOs initially asked James Cleveland, that's your signature, isn't it, sir?
Yes,
To remain 15 feet away from them, right? Isn't that,
Yeah.
isn't that what you said?
yes,
And then it goes on to say that even after asking James to stay 15 feet, none of the PEOs seem to have a problem of you entering within 15 feet.
it doesn't say me, it says I'm talking about them entering within 15 feet.
You didn't stay.
So they made this
Excuse me,
request.
Excuse me, let me ask the question.
Okay,
You didn't stay 15 feet back.
I mean, there were times when what I'm saying there in the answer is, even after they made that request, there were multiple occasions when the PEOs, on their own volition, entered within 15 feet of me.
Well, let me ask you the direct question. Sir, are you willing to stay 30 feet away from these PEOs as they have requested you to do so?
No,
So, with regard to the use of these cards, which are Exhibit 4, is this the type of card that you were testifying about with Mr. Meyer that you would use?
yes,
And would Kate use these cards?
yes.
And would Ian use these cards?
I mean, I believe so. I don't know for
And-
sure.
And would Colson use these cards?
Yes,
And would, who have I missed here? Garrett, right?
yes,
And he would use these cards.
that's right.
And so where did everybody get these cards?
Well, as I mentioned in my testimony with Attorney Meyer, there was a local graphics artist who we had mentioned. So in the past, when Robin Hood used, they'd leave envelopes on vehicles. And I made a request to him, would he help us design a business card, because I thought
Who is this person?
that, his name is Marcus
Marcus what?
Connor.
Go ahead.
I made a request to him that I thought business cards would be a better thing for a variety of reasons, because they're easier to carry, you can carry more of them, you don't have to pack the envelope, they're easier to slide into wiper blades. Yeah, as opposed to lifting the wiper blade and then putting an envelope, you can just slide the card in there.
And you can slide these cards in any vehicle, anywhere, and stay 30 feet back from these PEOs, can't you?
I mean, I can, however, I still want to exercise my freedom of speech to have a conversation with them if I prefer.
And you can videotape the PEOs 30 feet back, can't you?
I mean, I can, you're correct.
And you can make saves, as you've said, 30 feet back from these PEOs, can't you?
I can, except that they will change directions, and then I don't know where they're going, so I can't stay in front of them, which I would prefer to do. And I only, as I previously mentioned, I only want to fill parking meters that would have been ticketed.
And the reason you only want to fill those meters is because your ultimate goal is to shut down the parking enforcement to the city, right?
I mean, my goal in filling meters is, as I mentioned, I don't believe that parking should be a crime. I don't think it harms anyone. don't agree that a ticket should be issued if there is one spot taken and 10 empty spots. I feel like that a ticket should not be issued at that point. And, you know, I've expressed in the past to the parking enforcement officers, if they only enforced at peak hours, and I would define peak hours as maybe 95% or more occupancy. That's just my definition, where it could be difficult to find a spot, then they could enforce, and I would be a little more okay with it.
And one of the things you've already said is that you, in shutting down the parking enforcement, whether it's phased in or more immediate, is to put the parking enforcement people out of work.
I mean, that's not my intention.
I would ask Nancy,
I think we are covering some of the same ground, but the objection to the rule, I think we have gotten an answer.
My intention in Robin Hooding, I mean, I would say that I hold no personal animosity towards any of the parking enforcement officers. I think that, you know, they're okay people. I don't agree with the job that they're doing per se, but I've never followed them off duty. To my knowledge, I've never chatted with them off duty. I know Linda's seen me. She goes to the library some Saturdays. I've never talked to her. I don't want to talk to them. You know, my goal, I guess, it would be like if you wanted to privatize the trash collection of a city. You may have that goal because you think it would run better, not because you want to put the trash collectors out of work. So my goal in Robin Hooding is not necessarily to put these people out of work. It's a protest against something that I see as an injustice. I don't agree with parking tickets. I think that they're bad for businesses downtown because the argument is if there is no parking enforcement, that people will take the spots all day. And maybe that's a valid argument, but I would argue the people who do come and shop downtown, you know, they may, let's say, park their vehicle, eat a meal, get issued a ticket. Their incentive is not to come back. Not to mention people who are visiting Keene. I've got a lot of letters in the mail, you know, when I leave my little green, or emails, green flyer, you know, basically I was visiting out of town. This soured my experience of Keene. So I feel that it's bad for the city, it's bad for the small businesses in Keene. And I don't propose to know the perfect solution for parking. I do think that there are a few things that could be done in the interim. Ultimately, I would like to, as I mentioned, have more spaces built. I would like to phase out the parking department. But I don't do that because I don't advocate that position out of spite for the enforcers. You know, I have no, I guess, personal feelings against them in any way. And, you know, I've had really good conversations with them. I've enjoyed being around them.
And you can do all of those things from the distance that you and I are, can't you?
No, because if I'm trying to have a conversation with Jane at 30 feet, it's almost like I'm involving everyone within earshot because
Sir,
I have to raise my voice.
Sir, you know that Jane doesn't want to have a conversation with you anymore. You know that now, don't you?
Well, sir, I would say that she is a government employee, and if she does not wish to have a conversation with me when she is off duty, I can understand that. However, I reserve my right under Article 8 of the New Hampshire Constitution to have a conversation with said employee when they're on duty, acting in their official capacity. And I also reserve my right to have a speech, whether that speech is hostile, which I don't think I've been that hostile personally, or just mundane, just talking about, let's say, the weather with Jane.
You sound like you're a student of the law in this area. Have you come across the case of Glick versus the First Circuit?
I think I mentioned it in my
Wait,
answer.
Your Honor. I do not see the, oh, I'm sorry. Let me say relevant thing the court wants application.
He brought up the Constitution. I just want to see whether he's familiar with a comfortable remove away from governmental officials doing their job. That's all I'm asking.
That wasn't,
Maybe
that,
you're-
wait, that wasn't the question.
I said,
If
are
you
you
wanted to
familiar-
ask the question, that's fine, but he said, are you familiar with GLIC?
Right. That's what GLIC stands for.
It's not what, that's not
Okay, I
what
think
it
we're
is.
off the point of that.
That's the most absurd characterization of GLIC.
Okay, that's not necessary. You can make your arguments as the
I'm
evidence
sorry.
without,
Right,
without,
but I guess my point is, we immediately get into arguments over what GLIC stands for. And it's fine for me to argue with Attorney Bauer on that point, but it's not fine for Attorney Bauer to start arguing with the witness about
I'm not
that.
arguing, I'm asking a question.
You are, we're gonna characterize it that, we inevitably gonna characterize the case that way, the witness is no response, he's not a lawyer.
how is the witness's understanding of the Blake case relevant to the issue before the court?
I want to know whether if he's well-versed on the law as he's suggesting that he is in the last answer, whether he knows the principles of GLIC out of the First Circuit, which is directly relevant.
We'll have legal argument at the end of proceedings, but to argue the law, I think if you have a specific question,